Hello everyone and welcome to Power Rangers Stories. Here I bring you the untold and what could have been stories. So sit back, relax and get ready to listen to some more phenomenal adventures. Also don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell to get notifications on the latest videos. And may the power protect you. Ninja Storm, the Pink Ninja Ranger. Chapter 3. Looming Thunder. Zoey walked into Storm Chargers, ready to start her first day. Hey, Zoey, the red-haired young woman smiled at her. You ready to get started? She asked. As Zoey went to reply, Dustin shot past, looking anxious. Yes, I am. You still taking Dustin to the track? Zoey asked her, and Kelly smiled. Yes. And I'd like for you to come with me. I could use some help with the equipment. She grinned. I know you used to ride. Would you like to test? I'd rather just focus on work for now. With all of my online classes, I don't have time to take on any competitions. Zoey replied. Not that I don't mind blowing off some steam with some extracurricular activities, just nothing serious. Understood. Kelly looked over. Let's head out. I think Dustin's getting fidgety. Dustin shot over the hills as he raced around the track, and Zoey watched as Kelly timed him. He's good, Zoey commented as she watched the Yellow Ranger fly around the corner, ahead of most of the other racers. He's really good. She paused when she saw two more bikes hurtling around the track, closing in on Dustin fast. As he flew over another hill, the two bikes shot past him, crossing the finishing line ahead of him. Looks like there's some new talent in town, Kelly mused as Dustin rode up to them. He pulled off his helmet and revealed that he looked just as confused as Kelly did. Man, have you ever seen those guys before? He asked as he glanced over at the pair. They rode to a clear spot nearby as Kelly shook her head. They ride like factory pros. I would have remembered them, Kelly replied as she watched them. I'm just glad they don't race 125. Dustin grinned and Kelly laughed. Zoey watched curiously as the mysterious pair pulled off their helmets. The one in dark red gear was much taller and had blonde hair that fell into his eyes, and the one in deep blue gear was short, with short dark hair. I'm gonna go say hey, Dustin decided. Zoey stopped him before he could leave. Wait. I want to come too. She didn't understand why those two guys seemed familiar to her. She has an eidetic memory. She never forgets a face. Keep an eye on him, will you? Kelly asked as she started cleaning up their things to put into the van. I don't need to be watched, Kelly. Geez. Dustin complained. Zoey laughed and nodded, no problem, Kelly. Gotcha covered. She jumped on his back and wrapped her arms around him. Come on, dirt boy. Let's go. Dustin groaned, but grinned as he took off down the hill. Hey, there, how's it going? Dustin greeted the pair as he and Zoey reached them. Track's a little soggy, the blonde replied, not appearing too friendly as he climbed off his bike. He barely even looked at them, and Dustin's smile faltered slightly. That didn't seem to slow you guys down. Dustin pressed ahead anyways as Zoey got down from his back. I'm Blake, the shorter one spoke up, and rolled his eyes at the other racer. Tall, dark, and brooding over here is my brother Hunter, he added as the blonde made no move to speak up. You guys are brothers? Dustin couldn't hide his surprise as he looked from one to the other. They're obviously adopted. Zoey rolled her eyes, figuring out why they were familiar but keeping it to herself. Some secrets are best left unsaid. For now. Dustin nodded and looked away, looking uncomfortable. Oh right, cool. Dustin struggled to think of what to say. My name's Dustin. This is Zoey. We work together, he told them, and Zoey raised a hand in greeting as they glanced to her. I haven't seen you before, where's your home track? He asked curiously. You wouldn't have heard of it, Hunter snapped before his brother could reply. Easy bro, Blake smiled weakly at his brother. And he wonders why he doesn't have any friends. He grinned as he looked back at Zoey and Dustin. You were pretty fast out there, Blake told Dustin, who shook his head.
Yeah.
Right. I must have been giving up a couple of seconds per lap to you guys dash. You get too much airtime in your jumps. It slows you down, Zoey interrupted, making Dustin's smile fall instantly as he looked over at her. How would you know that? Dustin asked curiously. I used to ride, Dustin. Not as much now, as I have other interests, but the knowledge is still there. She explained, so, quite showboating. No flashy stuff. She's right, Blake nodded, looking impressed. What are you doing now? Wanna follow us, he offered, but Dustin shook his head, looking a little disappointed. Sorry man, I gotta be somewhere, he told the short teen. Rain check, he asked, and Blake nodded. No worries, Hunter's grin didn't look too friendly. Next time, he said, walking off. Blake said, goodbye, and headed off as well, and Dustin groaned. Man, sometimes I hate being a ranger, he complained, and Zoey looked up at him as they walked back up the hill. Look, Dustin. Riding is great. So is having a life outside of being a ranger. But you have to prioritize. Saving the world is more important than riding a dirt bike. I'm sorry. She shrugged, and ran up the hill as Dustin stopped and watched her, looking surprised. While Dustin helped finish packing up his bike with Kelly, Zoey went on ahead to training, leaving Dustin to head to the forest himself. Hey, Tori. Shane. Zoey. Dustin tried as he arrived at their training spot and found that nobody was around. Don't tell me I missed training again. He groaned when silence was the only reply he received. Why do I do this to myself? He mumbled, turning in circles for any sign of the others. Come on you guys, he called out again, but instead of having the others reply, he was greeted by a group of Kelzacks that surrounded him. Trying not to show his fear, he fell into a fighting stance, and the Kelzacks attacked. Dustin blocked the first attack and ducked, before turning to another and kicked it out of the way. He threw two at the Kelzacks standing in front of him. He turned and punched another, so it slammed into a tree. One grabbed his arm and the others quickly swarmed around him. They tossed him to the ground and circled around him. As the Kelzacks held their swords over the Yellow Ranger, the rumbling of bike engines filled the air and made them look up quickly. 3 bikes hurtled towards them, with the other rangers riding them. Each bike in the ranger's colors with gold trim on them. They fired energy blasts at the Kelzacks as they shot past. Oh dude. He shouted, putting his hands to his mouth. Cam walked up behind him holding a remote and a backpack on his shoulder. Hey, Dustin. He greeted. Hey, man. You know, I told these guys not to engage the enemy until the bikes were ready. But of course, no one ever listens to the guy with the glasses. Cam spoke. So, dude, what? These are the tsunami cycles? Dustin asked in awe. The two ducked as Tori came sailing over their heads yelling, these are great. Man, I thought these things were months off being ready. So did I. Had a little help from Zoey though. Got them finished quicker. Turns out her brother used to be a race car driver. He taught her how to work on engines. She's pretty good at it. Cam responded. Dustin looked excited. So, what? You got something for me? Cam shifted his bag. No. Should I? He asked seriously. Oh, come on man. Quit joking around. No, seriously. I don't know what you're talking about. Dustin looked over at dejectedly. So what? You're saying that the motocross guy is the only one that doesn't get a tsunami cycle? Zoey pulled up beside them. Come on Cam. Quit messing with him. We got work to do. Cam laughed. All right, fine. Dustin's mood lifted. Cam used a remote to direct a massive Mack truck toward them. Meet your new mobile command center. Cam spoke. The truck pulled to a stop, and the back opened. Check this out. A yellow Tsunami cycle with a yellow lightning bolt framework design on the back came out. Oh, dude. Dustin said, shocked. Well put, Dustin. Cam looked over at him. So, what? Anything I should know? Dustin asked.
Yeah.
Just make sure. He was cut off by Dustin running up toward the bike and flipping through the air morphing. Cam sighed. Why bother? Dustin revved his engine and took off after the others. Hey, Dustin, you made it. Shane called as they sped down the road. Dustin nodded, giving them a thumbs up as his way of conveying his pure excitement. Look, the creeps are back. Tori noticed, and the four turned in different directions to take out their enemies. Zoey spun in a circle, blasting any Kelzacks that got too close to her, and she grinned under her helmet. This is definitely different to riding a regular bike. It has a lot more power. I love it, she cheered as she took out the Kelzacks. I may make a few tweaks, though. Hope Kim won't mind. She joined up with the others as they regrouped again to face off against the last of the Kelzacks. Wow, this is fun. Tori cheered.
Yeah.
I'm just warming up, Shane nodded. Too bad there had to be Kelzacks, Dustin complained as he leaned on the handlebars and looked over at the last of the Kelzacks. Not for long. Shane called out, and they revved up their bikes and shot at the Kelzacks. The four flew through the air, shooting their lasers at them, taking them out with no opposition. The creatures went up in flames, defeated. After their battle was over, the Rangers sped back over to the mobile command center that Cam had created and dismounted. Dustin and Shane were making their excitement known as they all demorphed, and Cam walked over, shaking his head. Hey, guys, he greeted as he walked over to Tori's bike and started examining it. Hey, these bikes are amazing, Shane commented as he sat on his bike. You know, Shane, you were lucky, Cam replied, not looking at the Red Ranger. They still need some fine-tuning, he told him, before turning to Dustin to give him his backpack, speaking to him quietly. These are really cool. Zoey studied her bike, thinking of calling her brother on ways to make it more powerful. I wonder if there's a way to fuse my Foxfire with it. She hummed, I'll ask Billy. She looked up as she noticed something in the trees nearby and looked over quickly. What's wrong? Cam asked as he walked past her. I thought I saw nothing. Zoey dismissed it and went to put up her bike. Shane, Tori, and Zoey stood in ninja ops after being called in by Cam, who was working on his computer. There's some subterranean disturbance, he muttered. This is not good, he summed up, before the lights began to flicker and the ground shook. Zoey was able to stay on her feet, but Tori bumped into Shane and they almost fell to the ground. What's happening? Shane called, catching Tori's wrist before the other ranger could fall. As suddenly as it started, the earthquake stopped, leaving a piece of the ceiling on the ground. Shane looked over at Zoey. You didn't even budge. Do you have magnets in your feet or something? What was that? Zoey ignored Shane's question to ask one of her own. Cam was already searching for the reason on the computer. Seismographs are picking up some serious activity, he told them, before the screen showed a monster bursting out of the ground. There's your reason why, Shane growled. That is one massive mole, Tori spoke with shock and disgust as she stared at the monster. Thudding footsteps echoed towards them and Dustin rushed into ninja ops and ran over to them. Sorry, I'm late, guys. I got hung up at the track, he apologized as he breathed heavily. He was unaware of the scowl Shane shot him as he checked out the new monster. Better late than never, Shane's voice was flat, and they could hear his irritation clear as day. He's at the quarry, Cam informed them and Shane straightened up. On it, the four stepped away from the computer. Ready? Ready. Ninja storm. Fire storm. Ranger form.
Ha!
Power of earth. Air. Water. Fire. The four ninjas raced to the quarry, where they found Terramole walking about complaining about his day. The monster cried out as they blasted him with their lasers and threw him backwards. "Hey, molehead!" Tori called as he spun around to face his attackers. "We don't dig what you've been doing." Dustin called as he held his blaster in his hand. "Oh,"
Yeah.
Terramole scoffed. "Well, I'm guessing by the spandex that it's your job to try and stop me," he mocked as he walked towards them. "Wow." Sarcasm. "Like we haven't heard that before." "Seriously. Can they at least be original?" Zoey told her teammates, making them laugh. "Catch me if you can," he laughed, and dove underground, disappearing. Where did he go? Shane growled as they looked around, looking for any sign of him as they prepared to defend themselves. "Want to take a wild guess?" Tori asked sarcastically. He suddenly burst out of the ground between them. He spun around, slashing at the Rangers. Going up, he laughed as he flew around. Going down. As soon as he popped out, he was immediately back in the ground. Zoey, look over at Shane, you now. I could probably shoot a fire arrow down there. Might burn him out. What do you think? Shane just shook his head as they all laughed. All right, dig this dirt, boy. Dustin growled. Ninja dirt dive, he burrowed deep underground to follow Terramole. There were two puffs of smoke coming from opposite directions as the two shot at each other. When they collided with each other, there was a small explosion and Dustin went flying out. That was down and dirty, Shane commented as they ran over to the fallen Yellow Ranger. Terramole in the house, the monster burst out of the ground and landed nearby. Watch and learn, Rangers, I'm going to trash your city from the inside out. Terramole leapt back into his hole and disappeared, fleeing the battle. Get back here, they yelled, but it was too late. Ah. He got away. Shane groaned. Seriously. I can just shoot some fire down there. No problem. Might be interesting seeing Mole a la mode. She held up her bow. Shane just looked over at her. Zoey. What? It was just a thought. She defended herself as she made her bow disappear. He'll be back. Tori assured. They always come back, Dustin commented. Hey, Zoey. The teen looked over the large box of swimming gear to see Blake grinning at her. The brothers were standing in the doorway of Storm Chargers, looking around. You see Dustin anywhere?
Yeah.
He's in the back, I'll get him for you. She told them, dropping the box on the ground. She walked into the back, where she found Dustin working on his bike. Hey, Blake and Hunter are here looking for you. Dustin looked up and grinned widely. Thanks, Zoey. He dropped his tools into the kit and stood up, brushing oil on his jeans before walking past. Zoey followed him back out, grabbing the box and opening it to restock the swimwear. So, do you do any sports? She glanced around again as she hung up a suit and found the three boys looking at her. Yes, I do. Zoey nodded. What kind? Hunter asked, a little warmer than their first meeting. Well, I was a cheerleader. I also played softball, volleyball, tennis, and ran track. I surf, ski, snowboard, rollerblade, and ride motocross. I enjoy mountain climbing, caving, base jumping, skydiving, and bungee jumping. Zoey shrugged modestly. I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie. I'll try anything once. Dude. Seriously? She looked at Dustin. You did all of that on top of taking college courses while still in high school? Zoey looked away, suddenly shy.
Yeah.
Well. Why do anything in half measures, right? The other two, looking just as impressed, narrowed their eyes at her. Hunter paused for a moment before looking alarmed and whispered in Blake's ear, causing his brother's breath to catch in his throat. They looked back over at the girl in front of them, who just winked and held a finger to her lips to keep them quiet. For now. Hey, guys. Dustin, who completely missed the silent looks from the other three, looked over to Shane and Tori, calling them over. Cool, you guys finally get to meet. Shane, Tori, Hunter and Blake, Dustin indicated to each as he said their names. Dustin's told us a lot about you, Hunter nodded. But not everything. Blake grinned, his eyes on Tori, who blushed and smiled as Shane and Zoey shared a look. Laughing, Zoey shook her head before returning to hanging up the swimwear. Hey, Dustin, you got a minute? Shane asked, pulling the Yellow Ranger away. As Shane tore into Dustin, Tori spoke with Hunter and Blake, and Zoey watched while continuing to work. Come on Tori, I gotta go. Dustin grabbed Tori's arm and pulled her away from the brothers. See you guys, the pair said.
Goodbye.
As Dustin and Tori left Storm Chargers. Are you coming? Shane looked to Zoey, who nodded as she finished what she was doing. She put the box away and headed off. Oh, I forgot something. I'll meet you guys there, Shane called, and they nodded, heading off the ninja ops. Tori and Zoey watched with folded arms as Dustin performed push-ups on the table, his punishment for being late. 97, 98, 99, 100. Dustin collapsed, exhausted as Sensei jumped off his back. Perhaps now you will learn the importance of punctuality, Sensei lectured him as Dustin groaned. And you'll have really nice pecs, Tori added as she leaned on the table with a grin. She laughed as Zoey giggled, and the two sat on the table beside the panting ranger. Maybe I can sit on your back next time, Dustin. You'll probably work up a bigger sweat. Zoey said with a smith. Tori just laughed. Hey, Dustin, they looked up as Shane walked in. Can I talk to you for a sec? He asked as Dustin looked up. He rolled off the table as the smiles faded from Tori and Zoey's faces. Okay, dude, look, I'm sorry Dash. Hey, how well do you know Hunter and Blake? Shane cut him off before Dustin could finish his apology. I mean, they come out of nowhere, and suddenly they're your best friends. Dustin smiled weakly and shook his head. Dude, it's a motocross thing, he told the Air Ninja. You've got these skater buds of yours that you hang with and dude, they're total posers, and we don't say a word, Dustin told him, becoming defensive as Shane rolled his eyes.
Yeah.
Well, at least I know what's important here, Shane called as Dustin went to walk away, irritated. Dustin spun around as he struggled not to get angry. Look, ever since you've been hanging out with these guys, your priorities have gotten totally messed, he exclaimed. Dude, that's crazy man. Dustin walked back and looked to the other two. Come on, back me up here, Tori. Zoey, he looked to the female ninjas, who shrugged and looked away. Oh, come on man, he yelled angrily. Listen, I admit I've been a bit of an airhead, but Dash. This is not chess club, Shane hissed at him. We're talking about the end of the world here. Do you even get that? He asked. Lay off. They looked over at Zoey as looked up with a glare. He was late. He apologized. He was already punished by Sensei. You don't need to keep on about it. He needs to take responsibility. And he did. So stop yelling at him about it. Shane just shook his head. I am the leader. It is my job to make sure everyone is doing what they're supposed to. And he's not. You know what? I can't believe this. Dustin shouted, turning and storming off. I'm going riding, he growled as he walked up the stairs. Shane turned back to the two girls, and glared. Zoey moved to leave as well. I gotta go back to Storm Chargers. You know, I get it. You're the leader. But he's your friend. Sure, he's a bit of an airhead and he got distracted. But we all make mistakes. And it's not like he wasn't there for us when we needed him with the Terramole. She walked up to him. There were plenty of times my brother and their friends were doing some sort of activity that made them late for battles. Apologies were made and all were forgiven. How about you take a note? She patted him on the shoulder and walked out. Shane looked back at Tori, who just shrugged. After another earthquake alerted the Rangers that Terramole had returned, they had left ninja ops and headed off to the quarry. They looked around, but there seemed to be no sign of the monster. Where is he? Shane wondered, before Tori cried out. Found him. Shane looked around to see Terramole pulling Tori down into his hole, with Zoey holding onto her arms as she tried to stop him. Let her go. Shane aimed his blaster at the monster, who released Tori. The Blue Ranger cried out as she fell onto Zoey. The Terramole disappeared, reappearing seconds later as he grabbed Shane's ankles and swung him around before throwing him. The Red Ranger crashed to the ground beside where Tori and Zoey were lying. This guy is tough. Shane growled. Where's Dustin? Tori asked, looking around for any sign of the Yellow Ranger. That airhead? His ranger days are over. Terramole mocked as he appeared from his hiding place. Hey, we're the only ones who can call him an airhead. Shane yelled back. The girls nodded, and they ran at Terramole again, fighting him off. Guys, hang on. Dustin finally reached the battle. He leapt off the cliff and slammed his lion hammer at Terramole, but the monster slipped underground before it could hit him. You can't hide forever. He looked around, before tightening his grip on his weapon. Lion hammer time. He slammed it into the ground several times, and the pulsations ran along the ground like ripples. How's this for a big bang? He called, slamming the ground again. This time Terramole went flying out of his hole and landed heavily on the ground as the others ran over to Dustin. You know what I'm thinking. Sonic Fin. Hawk Blaster. Lion Hammer. The three Wind Rangers combined their weapons and aimed the Storm Striker at Terramole. Storm Striker, they called as he cried out in fear. Fire bow, Fox fire. Zoey charged her bow. Dig this. Dustin called. They fired their cannon as Zoey sent a flaming pink arrow at the Terramole, who cried out as he was destroyed. The Rangers cheered victoriously, before Terramole suddenly grew. Can you guess who the mole is now? He called as they looked up. Cam, you know the drill. Dustin spoke into his morpher, and Cam sent their Zords as Zoey backed away. Zoey, I found your Zord. Cam's voice echoed through Zoey's morpher, taking her by surprise. Sending it to you now, he called, and Zoey looked up as a pink and gold fox Zord ran towards the battle. Awesome. Zoey couldn't help but laugh and leapt up. Fox Zord, battle formation, she called as she landed in the cockpit. She hit a couple of buttons, and the Zord changed shape until it was a humanoid with a tail. Time to lay some groundwork. Terramole dove into the ground again and reappeared behind the Megazord. He slashed at them several times, before Zoey sent him flying with a kick. Thanks Zoey, Tori called, before Terramole disappeared back under the ground. He burst out in front of Zoey's Zord and threw her backwards, and as the Megazord went to attack, he moved back underground. He's too fast. Tori complained. Gone again. Dustin groaned, before an idea came to mind. Lightning Megazord, engage, he called on the Megazord's streamlined formation, which was thrown backwards as Terramole popped up. They recovered and swung a punch at the mole, who ducked. You're going down. Terramole caught the Megazord and pulled it down, and Zoey's Zord caught it before it completely fell. Again, with the digging thing. Shane complained angrily. He's a mole, Shane, it's what they do, Cam reminded him slowly. Power down and I'll send you something that can help, he told them, and they did so as Terramole jumped out again. Downloading Power Sphere 4 now, he granted them a new power disk that Dustin inserted into his console. Ram Hammer deploy. The three called as Terramole threw the Fox Zord out of the way. Whoa. It's time for me to hit the dirt, he called as he saw the new weapon. He burrowed underground, only for the Megazord to hit the ground and throw him back out. Hammer time. Dustin called with a grin, and with several strikes, they swung it at Terramole, defeating him for the last time. They were all at the track and Shane, Tori, and Zoey were on the side, with 3 motocross bikes, cheering Dustin on. He came up to where they were and showered them with dirt, making both Tori and Zoey groan before he stopped. Shane dusting dirt off their shoulders. Thanks for the shower, Tori said with a hint of sarcasm in her voice.
Yeah.
Seriously, Dustin? I just had a bath. Zoey said as she threw a dirt clod at Dustin. I didn't need another. Dustin just laughed as he pulled off his helmet.
Yeah.
Sorry. He apologized, so what? Did I look faster? You were ripping, bro. Shane answered as he clapped hands with Dustin. Where are Hunter and Blake? Shane asked. I figured they'd be here.
Yeah.
I don't know, Dustin answered. I guess they had better things to do than just hang out with a goof like me, huh? Hey, some of the stuff I said before Shane started, I didn't mean you weren't committed. I know, Dustin told him.
Yeah.
Tori agreed, you're a great ranger. A bit of a flake at times, but who isn't? But you always come through in the end. That's all that matters. Zoey finished. Thanks guys. Dustin thanked them. Well, let's go gear up. If we're going to be riding these tsunami cycles, we'd better be ready. The other 3 agreed. Let's do it. He put his arm around Zoey before walking. Come on, Zoey. You can help me, being amazing and all. She laughed, nodding in agreement. They turned to get into their moto gear that they got thanks to Kelly, who loaned it to them as Dustin put on his helmet. All 4 of them were unaware of the threatening danger that was about to happen soon. That's it for Chapter 3 of Ninja Storm, the Pink Ninja Ranger. I'll be having a lot more of this series out soon, continuing the Pink Ranger story. Remember, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. As always, may the power protect you, and see you for the next adventure.